Welcome to the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. I'm Catherine Tomlinson and I started an eco conscious pottery company called Oxford Clay. Now, Oxford Clay, I don't just make pottery, I also make books and courses for other potters who want to be more environmentally friendly in their pottery making. And that's what this podcast is all about. And I can't wait to get started. Let's go. Hello, welcome back to the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. I'm your host, Catherine Tomlinson. And in today's episode, I'm really excited about today's episode. It's episode 7 of the series about how to make a raw glazed mug on the potter's wheel. And in today's episode, we're actually making the raw glaze. So, this is a special glaze that I've tested. So, I know that it works with the raw glazing technique. And I'll give you the recipe in the episode. And yeah, I'll just show you. Basically, I just show go through every single thing that I do making a glaze. It's really simple. Yeah, from scratch in terms of all the ingredients and exactly like how much I'm using, and I tell you about how much water I'm going to use and stuff like that. So thank you so much for joining me for this episode. It was such a pleasure to make it, and let's get on with the episode. Hello, welcome back to the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. So, in today's episode, we're going to be making the glaze for our mug. And I wanted to do an episode on this because I want to show you how easy it is to make your own glaze. So, we we're going to be making a glaze recipe that's really simple. It's literally got like 4 ingredients plus water. There's no colorant in this glaze, but it makes this absolutely beautiful, like shiny glaze. So it's needs to be fired to stoneware temperatures, which is 1,260 degrees. And in the next episode, the one after, we'll talk about like the firing schedule for this glaze and what it needs. But yeah, it'll be stoneware temperatures. So that's kind of cone like 7, 8, 9. That's the kind of range, temperature range. So it's like high fired glaze. So this recipe is actually in the How to Make a Pottery Glaze like free workbook, which is the link is in the show notes to like every episode. So if you wanted to like make this glaze, the you can download the free booklet. It's got the recipe in there. It's got the firing schedule as well. And the really amazing thing about this recipe is that you can actually use it for raw glazing. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you in the next episode, like how to glaze our mug that we made. But this glaze you can actually use as a raw glaze. So not every glaze you'll be able to use as a raw glaze, but if you wanted some more raw glaze recipes, actually, you can there's actually like 10 raw glaze recipes in so there's 17 recipes in the book Eco Conscious Pottery Glazing, make your own pottery glazes with minimal harm to humans, animals and the environment. So that sort of talks about eco conscious glazing ingredients, ones to avoid, ones to use, and a kind of framework about how you can sort of select materials to make the most conscious, eco-friendly glaze that you possibly can. So there's 17 recipes in here, but 10 of them in this book are which you can get from the Oxford Clay website or Amazon as well, are compatible with the raw glazing technique. And so the way I tested this was I actually tested the glaze on a piece of greenware, like bone dry greenware, and also a piece of bisqueware. And then I sort of compared them after firing, just fired them all like up to stoneware temperatures, and then saw if there was any difference in the glaze. You know, if the raw glaze one sort of had like didn't look like it was sort of the same basically as the one that was applied to bisqueware pottery, then I thought, oh, it's not suitable because it's sort of doing something strange basically. But if they looked exactly the same, then I was like, oh, this is great, they're suitable for raw glazing. So this is going to be really exciting because they're gonna try it on the mug, and I'm gonna show you how to make a glaze in real time. So the first thing to say is that the equipment I'm using, um, So this is what I need. I basically need, well, you don't need this, but it's really useful to have a sort of baking spatula that just really helps you to like kind of mix the glaze, get it out of the bowl. They're really good, just that you'd get from like, yeah, for baking a cake, basically. Silicone spatula. I've got a mixing bowl. This mixing bowl is one literally just got it from the supermarket. It's used for again, like making cakes and like cooking. And it's got a pouring lip, which is really helpful for like pouring the glaze. Just using some kitchen scales, just normal kitchen scales. I'm using a glaze sieve. So this is you don't always need to sieve glazes, but it's a really good idea to do it. I mean, you could sort of maybe blend it with a stick, one of those soup stick blenders. They work really well for like mixing glazes. But um, one of the ingredients I'm going to be using today is Cornish stone, and they that tends to sometimes have like little bits left, if you're mixing it, yeah, even if you're hand mixing it or something. So it's a really good idea to like sieve the glaze after. It just gets rid of all those lumps, and you want a really, really super smooth glaze. Because if it's got any lumps in, they'll obviously, you'll see them basically on your pot. So it'll be like a lump of rock just melting on its own, not like integrated into the glaze. So yeah, a sieve, and I think this is like 120 mesh size sieve, and this is an actual specific glaze making sieve. But you can get other sieves just online. I've got another one which I use for sieving ash. I'll show you that one. That's just um that's just a metal sieve that I just got, and I think that's actually for baking. But this is like that one's like 100 mesh, and I just got that from the internet. So yeah, and I've got another one which I use for ash as well, and that was I think this is an 80 mesh sieve, and again that's for baking as well. So yeah, you don't have to use glaze making equipment necessarily. Okay, so but yeah, this 120 mesh size sieve is really good. It's plastic, it's quite small, it'll fit in a kind of jug or something. So that's another thing. We've got a jug, and that's just so we can kind of like pour the glaze. We're going to pour some water in the glaze to mix it up. And then we've also got a container to store our glaze in afterwards. So this is just like a glass bottle. It's a passata. that I use- It was from passata, like tomato passata, and so I'm just going to use this to store the glaze in. I don't 100% know this is the right size, but hopefully it'll be okay. Because I've decided. So the first step basically to making a glaze is that you have to decide kind of like how. Well, first of all, you have to find a recipe. Here's our recipe. So our recipe is 50 parts Cornish stone, 25 parts quartz, 15 parts whiting, and 10 parts dolomite. So the first step is to find a recipe if you're raw glazing, suitable for raw glazing. The second step is to decide how much glaze you're making. So this is not like, a definite art. It's more just like, how much glaze do I think I need to make? So I've basically gone for 300 grams of glaze. So we're talking like dry ingredients. So I've gone for 300 grams of glaze, and then we'll add some water to that, and hopefully it won't be too much to fit in my passata bottle. But I think that's going to be enough glaze so that I can like pour it around on the mug when we come to glaze it in the next episode. And I want a little bit for the rim as well. So I'm going to show you how to raw glaze something, and in the next episode. And yeah, so I don't want too much glaze because I don't want like loads and loads and loads of it. Like I don't want to make like a kilogram or something, but I also do want quite a lot so I can like pour with it. Like 100 grams, I think wouldn't be enough. So what I've done basically is I've just scaled up these parts. So, for example, Cornish stone 50 parts, I've scaled that up to 150 grams of Cornish stone. So I've basically just like turned it into grams and then times it by three, because you can kind of you can basically make this into, it adds up to 100. They don't always add up to 100 glaze recipes, but you can kind of like, just turn this into grams, say like 100 grams, and then I've just times it by three. And I've written it down on a piece of paper so that I can sort of, as I'm making it, it will kind of really help me to remember like how much to weigh out. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be doing. So the ingredients for this glaze recipe are, so Cornish, like I said, Cornish stone and whiting and dolomite. I specifically chose this recipe. Specifically did some glaze recipes in eco-conscious pottery glazing that were as kind of locally sourced as I could get. So that's one of the kind of like defining factors of kind of an eco-conscious glaze. We want it to be like as local as possible. We want it to be like mined in areas where we know there's like robust regulation for like protecting the people and the environment, like protecting the people, like mining that pottery material. So Cornish stone, whiting and dolomite, they're mined in the UK. So I asked my pottery supplier, and that's where they're mined. And then the quartz is actually mined from Belgium in my particular ingredients that I got. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be we're going to be measuring them all out, and then we're literally just going to be adding them to a bowl and then adding water. But I do need to say you absolutely must have an FFP3 face mask if when you're making glazes. So I haven't put this on yet because I just wanted to talk to you about what's happening, but also um, like you absolutely need to wear one of these when you're working with any kind of powders. So in a minute I'm going to be putting this on when I'm weighing out the powders, and then I'll switch and I'll just kind of narrate the video it like in a in a separate kind of audio session, because yeah, I want you to know, yes, I'm going to be wearing my FFP3 face mask because rock dust that are used in like pottery are really dangerous for your lungs. You don't want to be breathing them in. They can cause a condition called silicosis. So you always need to be protecting your lungs when you're working with powders. And that's to say, when you're actually mixing the water in the glaze as well, at that time it can kind of create a lot of powder in the atmosphere. So yeah, just wear your mask throughout the time of making the glaze. Once you've actually made your glaze and it's a liquid, it's okay. You don't have to you don't have to continue to wear it, and you don't have to wear it when you're actually glazing your pot later on down the line. But it's just a really good idea to make sure where you're making the glaze is like really well ventilated as well, sort of get rid of all that dust from the atmosphere. So yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing. One last thing to say to you is that it's a really good idea to weigh the ingredients out separately, kind of at one at a time, and that rather than just kind of weighing them as you go in the same bowl. And that's because like a lot of glaze ingredients are like white powders, and so if you accidentally add too much, it's really difficult to take it out again because it's like they all look the same. So it's like it's trying to scoop like a white powder and they all just look exactly the same. So it's pretty much impossible to kind of separate your quartz from your whiting from your dolomite. I mean, they do it slightly different, but it's really difficult to separate them. So yeah, so that's what I do. I kind of weigh each one out, add it to the main bowl, and then mix some water in. So yeah, we'll get going. I'll put my mask on, and then we'll get going. Okay, so switching to narration for this part, and I'll talk you through what I'm doing. Um, okay, so obviously the first step is to put my FFP3 face mask on. I'm making sure it's got like a tight fit around my face and it's fitting my head properly so that I know that none of the powders can like go around the outside. So I'm just using a mixing bowl for this with a lip, as we spoke about, and gonna putting it on the just normal kitchen scales and equalizing it so it's down to 0, so I can start adding the ingredients. And I've written all my ingredients out on a list so I know exactly how much to put in of each one. That just saves kind of doing the maths as you go. So the first ingredient I'm using is dolomite. So dolomite is a type of limestone containing calcium carbonate, and it's often added to glazes to mattify and opacify them. Dolomite is mined in Derbyshire in the UK, and that's where this one, is available in other areas of the world as well, but that's where this one comes from. So you can check with your pottery supplier like where your dolomite comes from. So it was 30 grams of dolomite for this recipe. I'm just using like a garden scoop that I got from the garden centre to scoop out the glaze ingredients. You could use a spoon as well. Um, so the next ingredient I'm weighing out is whiting. We're doing 45 grams of whiting for this for the 300 grams of glaze. So whiting is like dolomite. Whiting is a form of limestone rock containing calcium carbonate, and it's used in a similar way to dolomite in glazes, and it produces an opacifying effect. So this whiting again is mined in the UK. I checked with my pottery supplier. And then the next ingredient is quartz. So I'm weighing out 75 grams of quartz. I actually keep quartz in a bin because I get through a lot of quartz because I use it for my kind of main glaze recipe that I use for my pots. And I also use it in the clay I make. So I keep it in a kind of dustbin with a wheelie platform so I can kind of wheel it around the pottery studio. Um, and Just again, scooping it out there. So, quartz is a mineral found in rocks all over the world. And the quartz used in glazes is a source of silica and can be used interchangeably with flint. So, you can't get quartz, you can use flint instead. Just see how that goes. Pottery is always about experimentation. Um, okay, and then the final glaze ingredient in terms of the rocks we're using, the glaze ingredient is 150 grams of Cornish stone. So Cornish stone, it's a feldspanoid mineral containing feldspar, quartz, mica, and kaolinite. Cornish stone is also known as Cornwall stone, so you might hear it referred to as Cornwall stone, English stone, DF stone, China stone, and Carolina stone. It's actually no longer commercially mined. So instead, it's made by synthetically degrading quartz. So your pottery supplier might be able to tell you like where the quartz comes from that's been made into Cornish stone, and my one's actually from Scotland. So Cornish stone often comes in sort of when you get synthetic Cornish stone, it often comes in kind of like big lumps. So it can be helpful just to break up the Cornish stone when you're actually weighing it out. I mean, sometimes it's good to have a big lump of the Cornish stone. You can just put it in, like, oh, that's what that weighs. But like when you're actually mixing it up, it can be like it's easier to break it up. So I've added some water and the first water I added is 200 grams of water, and that's just to kind of get us started. I'm going to mix it now with a spatula. So just mix it in the mixing bowl with a spatula. The Cornish stone is is a bit annoying. It's kind of like difficult to break up, but I'm just kind of using the spatula to like chop it up with the silicone spatula. Silicone spatulas are so good for glaze making. They're absolutely fantastic. So I've decided there's not enough water in there actually. So I'm gonna need to add a little bit more water because it's not going to kind of make the glaze as smooth as I'd like. There's the big lumps in there. Needs a bit more water to kind of get it going in terms of mixing it. So I'm adding another 150 grams of water. Um, and so that makes 300 grams of glaze ingredients in total in terms of the powders, and then 350 grams of water in this, just, in terms of experimenting in this particular recipe. So, um, this isn't exactly how much water you need. This is just how much I've added to sort of get the glaze going in terms of like a kind of sievable, usable glaze. Um, but later on, what we can do in the next episode, actually, I'll show you, we're going to be actually glazing our mug. We're going to be raw glazing our mug. And at that point, we're going to make sure the glaze is exactly the right consistency. And I'll show you how to do that. We're going to probably remove a bit of water from this glaze because I can tell it's a bit thin. But sometimes you need to kind of make a glaze a little bit thinner than you would use just to kind of get it all mixed. And it's hard to tell as you're mixing because you've got like all these powders and just going to pour it through a sieve to try and get rid of some of those Cornish stone lumps. So you're just going to use a spatula to kind of get the glaze out of the bowl, and it's going into that little mini sieve which I've just rested over the jug there. Just pushing the glaze through with a spatula. You can see the big lumps there. There's like still big lumps of Cornish stone, so it's like it's being a bit awkward, like getting it through. But it's really important to sieve a glaze because you do get lumps, especially with Cornish stone. Actually, you do get like these little lumps, and they just basically show up on your pot. So it's a really good idea to sieve a glaze. So I think this is like 120 mesh size that I'm pushing it through now. You could probably do 100 mesh size as well, or you can get like these little mini glazing sieves from pottery suppliers. That's where I got mine from. You can get them, yeah, like I said, like off the internet and stuff. Um, that's where I got my other one for sieving ash. I just got it from the internet. So yeah, so I'm pushing all the glaze through there. And this initial sieving is the one that takes the longest, just because we're getting rid of all the lumps. And just pushing it through there into the jug, and then I'm just going to pour it back into the bowl so that we can then sieve it. We'll probably sieve it one more time. So it's so helpful to have those bowls which have like pouring lips on. They're so good. Okay, so yeah, going to sieve it for the second time. This will be so much easier because we've already got rid of all those lumps. We can just get all the glaze out of that bowl with the silicone spatula. Just get it all sieved. And I'm keeping my mask on at this point, even though we're not sort of dealing with powders in terms of weighing them out. Still got it on because you can get like when you sort of adding water to powders, it can kind of create powder in the atmosphere. So yeah, it's a great idea just to keep your mask on throughout this whole sort of glaze making process. So I'm just going to get rid of the bowl. I'm going to wash that in a minute. So that's our glaze done. Right, yeah. So that's our glaze basically made. So we sieved it twice. Just going to put it in the passata bottle now. Think it's going to be okay. So yeah, so 350 grams of water. I actually think this glaze is ever so slightly on the thin side. I want it to be a bit thicker for when we do raw glazing, so you don't want to like oversaturate the pot. Um, so I think what we'll do is we'll put it in the bottle, and then we can always like just pour off the top layer of water because all the glaze ingredients will settle. Then we can mix it up again and just see how the consistency of it then. So it should be the consistency of like single cream really for a glaze, and this is a little bit thinner than that. And then we also for raw glazing want it a teeny weeny bit thicker. So just going to pour it into it's a bit thin, I can tell it's a bit thin. But it's quite good to make it up, like, a bit thinner, just so you can sieve it, and then you can always get rid of the water. Yeah, like I said, like, just pour the water off when the glaze has settled, but it's, like, easier to sieve when it's a bit thinner. So, yeah, we just sieved it twice there. Um, there we go. I'm gonna label that, and that's enough glaze to glaze our mug, definitely. So, yeah, 300 grams is absolutely perfect. So join me in the next episode where we'll be using this glaze to glaze our mug, which will be bone dry by that stage. We're going to raw glaze at the bone dry stage. Um, and yeah, I can show you how I do it, and like some tips for raw glazing because it's slightly different to if you were glazing like a bisqueware pot, not very different at all. So yeah, but there's a couple of things just to be like wary of. Like obviously that pot is trying to disintegrate at all times because it's only just dry clay. So yeah, so we'll cover all that on the next episode, and really looking forward to seeing you then. Thank you so much for joining me on how to make your raw glaze. And if you like I said, if you wanted this recipe and exactly how to make the glaze, and all of that information is in the how to make a pottery glaze free guide, which is just in the show notes. So thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye. Thank you so much for joining me on that episode. And if you want to find out more about eco-friendly pottery, head over to the Oxford website, which is www.oxfordclay.co.uk. Can't wait to see you there.